minutes. Improvement Service Committee will come to order. We will note that all members are present: Alder Gerlach, Alder Scannell, Alder Burnett, and Alder Weary. And can I have an approval of the agenda?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Scannell, second by Gerlach. Discussion. Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Approval of the minutes.
So moved.
Second.
And I'll second by Burnett. Nobody wanted it.
He was yawning.
Long day.
One of these times I'm going to slip up and say Alderman Ned Dorf, just for old time's sake. All right, those in favor of the minutes?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Number 1, consideration with possible action to have a traffic barrier installed on Bellevue Street running north from Lilac Lane, referred from December 9th.
Actually, because we have a public hearing tonight and the public hearing is posted for 6, we should probably go into that first.
You're right. Forgot about that.
That's
All
fine.
right.
Do we need to reconsider the agenda?
We don't have to reconsider the agenda. The public hearing takes precedence.
Oh, okay.
Public hearings. Number 1 is a public hearing on asphalt resurfacing. Oh, it's the only one. Asphalt resurfacing on Guns Road, Main Street to South Clay City limits. Harvest Road, Finger Road to Creek Lane, or Crest Lane, sorry. Irene Street, Crook Street to Main Street. And then concrete pavement, Gray Street, Dousman to Mather.
Okay, there's a public hearing on February 10th, 2021. In accordance with State Statute 66.0703, this public hearing is being held to levy assessments for proposed pavement improvements which are included in the 2021 Capital Improvements Program. All of the projects being considered tonight will be included in contracts administered by the City of Green Bay Department of Public Works Engineering Division. All of the proposed assessments are being levied in accordance with the city's assessment ordinance. During construction, the contractor is required to provide access to businesses at all times and residences as much as practical. When a residential driveway is inaccessible, property owners or tenants can receive permission from the city police department to park on adjoining streets. Problems during construction should be brought to the attention of the Department of Public Works Engineering Division by calling 448-3100. Concrete pavement. Gray Street from Dousman Street to Mather Street is classified as a minor arterial road in a residential zoned area with a few commercial properties. The existing concrete is an urban road section in poor condition and is in need of reconstruction. Gray Street will be reconstructed with a concrete pavement with integral curb over a gravel base and a typical clear width of 36 feet. The 2021 assessment rate for concrete pavement reconstruction is $74.75 per front foot for commercially zoned or used properties. The estimated cost of pavement construction is $1,035,000. Sanitary sewer, storm sewer, and water main rehabilitation and construction will be performed prior to pavement reconstruction. The estimated cost of sanitary sewer, storm sewer, and water main are $975,000, $1,030,000, and $500,000 respectively. There are no assessments will be levied for the sanitary sewer, storm sewer, or water main improvements. Asphalt resurfacing. Asphalt resurfacing on the streets being considered tonight will consist of milling the existing pavement, eliminating depressions with a 1 1/2 inch asphalt leveling course, and then placing a 1 1/2 inch or more asphalt surface over the entire paved area. The objectives of resurfacing are to provide a smoother roadway surface, eliminate maintenance problems, and to extend the life of the street. Asphalt resurfacing can only be completed on an existing improved street where the base is still in good condition. Once base failure has occurred, the entire street usually has to be reconstructed. Prior to resurfacing any street, utilities will be reconstructed and or rehabilitated as needed. In addition, preparation work consisting of milling the asphaltic pavement, spot base repair, and curb and gutter repair will be completed. The following factors are considered when determining whether or not the curb and gutter should be mud-jacked or replaced: the condition of the curb and gutter, the amount of water retained in the gutter, and the amount of funds available for curb repair work. All preparation work for asphalt resurfacing is provided at no cost to the property owner. The 2021 assessment rate for asphalt resurfacing is $14.40 per front foot for commercially zoned used properties. The estimated cost to resurface all of the streets in this year's program is $2,080,000. Personnel from the Department of Public Works Engineering Division have field inspected the streets included in this hearing and have determined that resurfacing is warranted at this time. The streets being considered tonight for asphalt resurfacing are Guns Road, Main Street to South City Limits, Harvest Road, Finger Road to Crest Lane, Irene Street, Crook Street to Main Street. No assessments will be levied for sanitary sewer, storm sewer, or water main improvements.
Thank you, Director. Do we have anyone here for any of these streets that wanted to speak? Look like it. Anybody here for any of these? Anybody wish to comment on the asphalt resurfacing or concrete pavement? All right. Take that as a no. Do we just close the public hearing then, Steve?
Yes, we can.
There's someone connecting right now.
That was Brian Powell with the Green Bay Water
okay.
Utility staff.
I just have one comment before then.
Go ahead.
I hope on Gray Street that, is it whoever does the road, do they also do the sidewalk?
Not necessarily. Again, because sidewalks are the responsibility of the property owner. If sidewalks are being directly impacted as part of the project, they will be replaced. But other than that, we do not. City never has just gone out and replaced all the sidewalks at once because that would be a huge financial impact to the property owner.
And because I know on the north side there, when we did the north side of Gray, I don't know who was doing the sidewalks, but boy, it's a roller coaster.
Yeah, I noticed that.
Yeah. So,
And
Can I ask a question about that? I mean, that's kind of
Sure.
across the street from you, Randy. And I know Director Grenier, we talked about that a little bit, but or Matt, Matt might have mentioned something about that. But as far as the reason for that,
sure.
it is elevated, then it dips down to the driveways. So you're right. Anyway, go ahead.
Okay, what happened was, since the original construction of that pavement back in the 40s, when staff went and did the design for the reconstruction now, the center line and the corresponding gutter grades have changed. So the street has come down a little bit from what it was before, and the driveways were very steep. So in trying to correct those driveways and take into account the change in profile elevation, at the driveway, the sidewalk had to be depressed, brought down. So we had areas where we brought the sidewalk down in order to make ADA compliant sidewalks along the stretch, but we only took out the amount of sidewalk absolutely necessary to make that ADA transition. And because we don't replace all the sidewalk, there was some existing sidewalk left, so it winds up with that wavy appearance. We did take those comments under consideration for the second phase. There's going to be some of that, but it should not be as abrupt. We lengthened it out a little bit to make those transitions a little less abrupt.
Have there been any issues from citizens calling about that at all?
We've heard about it, yeah.
Okay. All right. I know you're aware of it.
All right, thanks, Alder. Any other questions on these? Are just public hearings, so why don't we just receive and place on file? Would that be, or do we just jump out of it? I don't know.
What we'd be looking for is a motion to order the improvements constructed and order assessments levied.
so moved.
All
Second.
right, motion by Scannell, second by Gerlach to do the orders as stated by Director Grenier. Any discussion on that? Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That carries. Back to the regular business here, number 1. Consideration with possible action to have a traffic barrier installed on Bellevue Street running north from Lilac Lane. Referred to staff on December 9th. Director?
So included in your packet is a report from Dave Hansen, the traffic engineer, which documents the existing conditions, the concern that was brought up by Alder Galvin, the cause of that concern, conclusions, and the recommendations. And unless there are any questions, I think we can move straight to the recommendations, assuming that you've had a chance to review the report. The recommendations are to remove the existing advanced northbound curve and southbound turn warning signs on Bellevue Street at the approach to Lilac Lane. Then we will install an advanced northbound turn sign with a supplemental speed advisory plaque and an advanced southbound turn right sign between 150 and 200 feet in advance of Lilac on Bellevue. We'll try to co-locate that sign on either an existing post cooperatively with Wisconsin Public Service on a utility pole if we can do that, and if not, then we'll install a separate signpost. That's why the 150 to 200 range. We're going to look for an appropriate spot to see if we got an existing stanchion that we can use. Then thirdly, install a minimum of 6 chevron signs, 3 in each direction, spaced each approximately 80 feet on the outside of the turn left and turn right conditions. So it'd be left turning northbound, right turning southbound on Bellevue Street, approaching and through the Lilac Lane intersection. Page 8 of the report provides you with a copy of each of these signs. So the two advanced, the existing advanced signs are the number 1s you see on the graphic we provided you. The 2s would be, or actually the one on the figure is a speed limit 25 sign. The 2s would be the chevrons, and those would be placed back to back so you can see them from both directions. And then 3, the advanced sign we have would be the right turn or left turn as appropriate with a 25-mile-an-hour advisory placard on it.
Any questions from the committee? Alder Galvin, did you have a chance to weigh in on this at all, Steve?
I know this was sent off, but I have not heard anything from Elder Galvin at this point.
All right. What are the wishes of the committee?
I think we should approve.
Yeah, second.
All right, motion by Elder Gerlach, second by Elder Scannell to approve the 3 recommendations from the report. Any discussion on that? Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. Number 2, consideration with possible action on list of streets proposed for resurfacing and reconstruction in the 2021 capital improvement portion of the vehicle registration fee proceeds. Director.
Okay, in the packet, we provided you a copy of the proposed streets that make up this year's resurfacing program. And the next page would be the streets that make up the reconstruction program from this year. Want to call your attention to the Reconstruct Streets. We've got South Jackson in there, and it states from Bodart Street to South City limits. If you're familiar with that part of town, when the Tillman Bridge was built in 1972, there was also an effort that went forward where several streets that intersected East Mason Street were terminated with cul-de-sacs, providing that break because Mason Street carries so much traffic, and with the elevation of the bridge, it wasn't conducive. Jackson is one of those streets. So in our parlance, as we've been talking about this project for the past 2 years, we've got that broken into 2 segments. So if you hear me talk about a south segment and a north segment, the south segment comes from the South City limits to East Mason Street, and then the north segment picks up immediately north of East Mason Street and runs to Bodart. So I just want to make sure you were aware of that. In case I made a comment about south or north section, you'd be like, what's Steve talking about? So we provided you a copy of the streets. This year's program is proposed to have 21,166 linear feet of resurfacing and 10,330 linear feet of reconstruction for a total of 31,496 linear feet in the program. I do have a memo prepared. Unfortunately, it was finished this morning, so I didn't have a chance to get it off to you, but it will become part of the minutes, so it'll be part of the pack for council. And it's essentially a similar memo to the one that I delivered last year about sources and uses for the vehicle registration fee. So I'll read from that, and as part of the annual financial analysis and bond requests associated with the capital improvement program, we've determined the following needs for 2021. Payment of special assessments for pavement. Gray Street is $66,875.88. South Jackson North Segment, $221,864.14. South Jackson South Segment, $230,977.99. Cass Street, we've got a cul-de-sac east of Jackson on Cass that heads over towards Bellin. While we're going through reconstructing Jackson Street, it makes perfect sense to go and pick that cul-de-sac up. So assessments that would have been associated with Cass Street are $10,989.50. Law Street is the same thing. We've got a small section of law that cul-de-sacs adjacent to Jackson. $9,147.74. South Maple Avenue, $82,143.67. And the resurfacing 2021 program, $620,881.49 for a grand total of assessments that would have been collected, $1,242,880.41. In addition to covering special assessments for pavement, which were previously billed to the property owners, DPW has been charged with increasing the amount of road projects. Between 2010 and 2019, we went through these numbers last year, range from a high resurfacing or reconstruct projects range from a high of 15,510 lineal feet to a low of 0, averaging 5,978. By way of comparison, the 2019 program, before we started collecting wheel tax, contained 6,000 lineal feet of reconstruct. Resurfacing projects between 2010 and 2019 range from a high of 20,920 to a low of 12,970, averaging 16,960 lineal feet. The 2019 program, before wheel tax, contained 20,920. The proposed 2021 program significantly increases the amount of road projects above the 2019 program. The program, as submitted, has 10,330 lineal feet of reconstructs and 21,166 lineal feet of resurfacing. This program represents an increase in road reconstruction and resurfacing projects of 37.3% above the 2010-2019 average, and an increase of 16.8% over the 2019 program. To help offset the cost of the increase in program, DPW has proposed using the remaining funds in the vehicle registration fee for the program increase. Based upon actual funds collected since program inception, we expect to receive approximately $1,825,000 in vehicle registration fees. The money is proposed to be allocated, again, elimination of the resurfacing or special assessments for pavement, $1,242,880, and the increase in the resurfacing reconstruction program over the 2019 levels in the amount of $582,123. For comparison purposes, the total increase in program from 2019 to 2021 is approximately 4,500 lineal feet. If we simply look at the South Jackson South Segment program, or project in the 2021 program, that project is approximately 3,600 lineal feet and has an estimated program pavement cost of $660,000. This analysis does not take into account the increase in construction materials between 2019 and 21. The expected financial need for the increased program size exceeds the amount available from the vehicle registration fee. So what we're saying there is, because the council has given us directive to increase the program size, we're using all of the wheel tax money that doesn't go to special assessments to help fund that increase over the 2019 program. So staff has applied the entire amount of $1,825,000 anticipated to be generated within the vehicle registration fee fund toward covering the special assessments for pavement construction and to increasing the resurfacing reconstruction program. This action is consistent with the direction provided by the Common Council in February 2020, which provides the new baseline level of funding required to support the program of this size.
All right, thanks, Steve. If we have questions on that, we can always bring it back to committee. Otherwise,
Yep.
It would have been good to have today, but you read it all, so it seems pretty straightforward. Questions from the committee? Looks like this Got quite a few. It must have either the worst roads. Is that you, Mark? No, we can't hear you.
Oh, yeah, I was going to say, I know I was just sending an email to Director Grenier. There's 7 segments. I'm appreciative for that. I guess the one question I would have is like, and you may have told us before, Steve, but when you look at roads that need to be resurfaced, I realize there's the Pazer report and such, but when do you make determinations for each year as far as coming forward with what needs to be resurfaced, et cetera?
Well, it's changed over time, and right now we actually have a draft 5-year program that's included within the 5-year CIP that will be discussed at Finance Committee. So we're already looking 5 years out right now.
Okay, and as far as now requests for other roads, to be looked at, is that something that your department will do, or will Alders still chime in with you? What is that? What's your take?
Absolutely. At any time that an alder has a suggestion, by all means, go ahead and send those in. We'll take those under consideration. What's happened, and I think we've discussed this in the past, as we've started generating better and better data out of the GIS system, we are now overlaying not only the pavement Pazer ratings, but also the sanitary and storm sewer conditions. We don't have a numerical score for the water main, so what we do is we come up with a larger list of candidate streets utilizing the pavement ratings, the sanitary, and the storm ratings. Then we forward that candidate list over to Green Bay Water Utility and have their input on it based on the amount of water work that needs to be in. The candidate streets are then prioritized at that point, and we make a program selection for a given year.
Okay, and one other thing, I know that you and I talked last week about a few things, and I still would like the opportunity to see graphically, since we've had the wheel tax, what roads have been upgraded. I realize that, we can dig back ourselves, but if there's some way to show graphically, what we've been doing over the last number of years with this program, I think it would be helpful for the alders. At least for me, it would be, if there's a way to show that.
Well, and we can talk, because we do need to have a conversation relative to the other project that you had talked about.
Yes, right.
That's incredible. We don't have a lot of that data, and it would be very, very labor intensive. But if we're simply looking at putting together something graphically showing the streets that have been resurfaced or reconstructed, I think that's something that's a little bit more manageable. That we could definitely do something like that. Just one diagram or one file or one such that would take care of that. That would be fine if you could do that. If not, I just think graphically it's nice for all the alders to kind of see what improvements there have been over time throughout the city. So that's my request. Thanks. Okay.
Thanks, Alder Sawyer. Any other questions? Otherwise, I'll entertain a motion. Alder Scannell.
Chair. I think not just for the alders. I'd like to see that go public. Let's inform the public what all we're doing. They're always asking. They're always on our backs, and this would be I think a good PR for the city.
Well, then again, we don't have a problem with that. What I'd like is some direction, from yourself, and I've had some conversations with Alder Sawyer on what exactly you'd like to see. I don't want to guess and guess wrong, is what I'm saying. Right. Okay. So if you give us some direction. And
one thing I've talked to Director Grenier about was like a pilot project. Now, I was asking about my district, and I realized there's some labor intensivity about something like that. But, a lot of times in our district, we'd like to know, okay, what areas have had mini sewers? What areas have been resurfaced? What has been repaved? What has been reconstructed? The various elements, there's a lot of things that Public Works does, for your area, for the city. It would be nice to see it graphically or on a spreadsheet of some sort, something that we could look at and just have a handle on, okay, we're doing pretty well with this, we can improve here or that. Just information. That's all I'm looking for, research and information. So.
Right, now, say for whatever isn't too labor intensive. As much work as you can show that you've done to inform the public this is where your tax dollars are going. We're doing this. Look at it,
That's
but I wouldn't want
good for
this
us.
a lot of
That's
time
good for us.
getting
Yes.
detailed. It shouldn't be anything that's too labor intensive.
Well, and what I'm getting at, it depends on how far back we're going to go and how much information we're trying to capture, because a lot of this, it's really only been the last 2 years or so that we've put a lot of work into our GIS system. So legacy data from before that is going to have to be generated. We have one GIS person in the department, and he has a pretty full slate already with his quote-unquote day job. This would be an additional task that would be put onto him. We may have, depending on how far back we're going to go and how much data we're looking to collect, we could be looking at adding 2 GIS persons to our table of organization simply to do this project. And I don't have to tell you folks how much I give you the sad eyes and
I'm not asking
cry
for
when
that.
budget time comes around. So
Right. I think just from the wheel tax, when we started using the wheel tax, that should only be a year or two. So
That'd be a good start.
I think
Something
so.
from there.
And perhaps
again,
a reference where we were,
we
just
can-
give some idea comparison. Otherwise, it'll have no buzz.
yeah,
Alder Johnson, did you have your hand up? And then Alder Gerlach?
Yeah, just a couple of questions, if I could, Chair, for Director Grenier. If we have individual roads within our district, and I know you touched on this a little bit, I'm not necessarily wanting to try to influence you to say, hey, I want this road in the report this year, so much as it is to better understand from a forecast perspective, when it might come up. That part of that, is identifying with the GIS process, like when work might be involved. Now that you're working more closely with the water utility in terms of that overlap, if we sent you like certain streets that are in really poor condition in our respective districts, would you be able to give us a reasonable idea of when it might be coming up for either resurfacing or reconstruct?
we can definitely give you an idea of whether it's been evaluated for the current 5-year cycle or not. And then something like a 10,000 foot view, we expect this might be in a 5 to 10 year range, a 10 to 15 year range, or a 15-year plus. I think we could probably do something like that.
Okay. And the reason I'm asking that question, Director Grenier, is there's one road in particular that I'm thinking of that a number of residents have contacted me on, and I have no idea if it's in the water utility schedule, to have something done. And if not, if it's just a simple resurfacing, that's one that would be ideal to look at, but I don't want to press that issue if it really needs a reconstruct, that is planned for 3 years down the road or something.
Well, but that's helpful information to know as well. You may come to us with a street that, to a non-engineer, looks like a perfect candidate for resurfacing. And in speaking with Matt Wysack, the assistant city engineer in project development, he may come back and tell you, no, there's wheel ruts there that's indicative of base failure. When the base is failed, you can't resurface the street anymore. It has to go to reconstruct, so it's in the reconstruct queue. That would also be helpful information for you.
Okay, great.
So,
I'll reach out to
by
you
all
on
means,
that then.
let us know.
Secondly, then, you had mentioned the increase from 2019 to 2021, and you kind of mentioned a total linear feet increase. Do you have a sense when we're looking at from 2020 to, because if I recall last year, we did an increase of 40% resurfacing in 2020. Do you know where 2021 kind of falls? Are we looking at an increase from 20 to 21?
No, we are not. We are looking at roughly the same linear feet. Again,
Okay, so
when we talked about
we're
utilizing
flatlining.
the money from the wheel tax, I was very, very clear with the committee at that time that to expect continual increases over time, we didn't have the program funding to support that, and we don't have the staff to support it. The idea was to ratchet up to a new normal, and that's what we're holding, is that new normal.
Okay, and I appreciate that perspective, which kind of leads nicely into my next question. And I don't know if you would be able to cleanly answer this on the spot, but what would you say is the maximum sustainable program growth. From the perspective of, I think we all recognize that we'd still love to do more streets. I think as a council, for us to make an informed decision about how to properly allocate resources to allow you to do that, it helps us to know what your department and what subcontractors can reasonably accommodate. Could you just maybe comment on that a little bit?
At this point, I would say we're there. We're already there. And again, I've mentioned this repeatedly in the past. In addition to the levy-supported borrowing or levy-supported funding that goes into the pavement, we also have to take into account the two sewer utilities, which have to fund themselves, and Green Bay Water Utility. And Mr. Powell is here with Green Bay Water tonight, so he can help answer some of this if necessary. Each of those utilities, now Green Bay Water Utility is actually a Public Service Commission regulated utility, so rate increases have to go to the PSC. Within their rate structure, they only have a certain capacity that they can dedicate to capital projects without affecting their rate. Similarly, we don't have to go to the PSC with the sanitary and stormwater utilities, but we have to be cognizant of how much rate increases are going up and the impact to the ratepayer. So each of those three utilities only has a certain amount that they can continue to contribute towards reconstruct and resurfacing streets to handle the underground infrastructure before we pave. If we exceed the current program size, we are going to be paving over streets that have infrastructure underneath them that we can't even have a reasonable expectation of the infrastructure lasting as long as the pavement. And that's the risk. That would be the risk we would take.
Okay. And that's helpful to know. Just one final question I would have. Does your industry do any type of forecasting or reporting that might predict where the cost of materials is going? And the reason I ask that question is because I would think that it would behoove us as a city to take advantage, of course, of doing more resurfacing, for example, when prices are low and scaling it back when prices are high. Does your industry do any type of forecasting on that?
We do try to monitor trade magazines and sources around the industry. I won't say that anybody's been hyper accurate within the past several years because market conditions beyond the market's control have dictated things more often than the market itself.
Okay, so there's not like an actual report that's generated by an industry association that kind of does that for you then?
No.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thanks, Elder Jensen. Elder Gaylord?
It's good. I'm fine, thank you.
Okay. Let's see. Steve, what would you say this year, what percentage of the roads are we doing? Do you kind of, is that something you have to look at and get back to me, or do you know?
Let me see if I can get to a calculator quickly enough here.
Use fingers and toes.
Yeah, Chris, I need to step away for like 5 minutes.
No. Okay.
Not excuse. All right, I'll be right back. I gotta let the dogs out. That's
All right. Then we can ask you who let the dogs out.
I was just,
I wanted to say I was muted. I was muted. Darn it.
I would have thought with Steve's giant brain, he would have done this in his head.
Well, what I'm trying to remember is how many miles of street we have. That's where I'm coming up blank.
450, is it?
Overall
Roughly?
system, we're at 456 and change, but that also includes connecting highways and county trunks.
Ballpark.
Ballpark, we're going to be between 1.5% and 2% right now.
Gotcha. Okay.
And again, most of our resurfacing and reconstruct streets that are in the program are dedicated less so on the bigger streets, on the arterials, because most of the arterials qualify for some state funding, and we try to use state and federal funding to help offset those costs because the cost of the reconstruct is much larger, being 4-lane facilities with the larger streets. So when we start taking a look at comparison to the residential streets, then obviously you knock out a lot of lane miles and that percentage goes up.
I know we've tried to wrestle this hog in a lot of different ways of trying to get more streets done.
Yeah,
And you've helped paint the picture, of what's all involved. And that does complicate it. And I'm glad we're really honing in on how we can coordinate everything. If there's any way to even pick off more of those, and maybe there aren't any, those low-laying fruit, with just the simple resurfacing that really don't need any below surface work.
Well, and I have really challenged Matt Weissek and his group to look for those streets and get as many of those in here. Let's start supplementing that program as much as we can. Unfortunately, by the time you layer on the storm sewer, the sanitary sewer, and the water utility, I think 2 years now we've come up almost zero on those streets. Somebody, one of the three, needs to do something underneath them. There are days where I wish I lived in one of our suburban communities. I'm not going to name any of them, but only for the fact that most of the suburbs they're not as old as we are, so they don't have the age of the underground infrastructure, which makes that a little easier to do. There are some communities who have nothing but plastic pipe underground. And when you've got that, the pipe was only put in within the last 40 years and it's got a 100-year lifespan. I can get 2 more resurfacing on that before I have to worry about the pipe being bad. Whereas we're going in the streets, most of our 1920s vintage sewers are gone, but we have a significant amount of 1940s vintage that we're still replacing or rehabbing when we're going out to do these projects. So we're talking about 80-year-old infrastructure that really only had about a 50-year lifespan to it to start with. So some of the stuff that we're digging up is held up pretty well given what the expectations are, but it's definitely in need. And again, at some point, the council may have to take that issue up and decide whether or not they want to roll the dice and put a new street over the top of an old pipe and risk that pipe failing.
All right, fair enough. Alder Stoyer.
Thank you, Alder Wery. Steve, I'm just going to ask about that too. I was talking about roads that have been resurfaced or repaved, or I should say reconstructed. But as far as the utilities, I know that you have to work with all 3 utilities to look at, the condition that they are in as you're looking to resurface or do what have you. Is there a graphic way to show that as well? Because I know those are 3 different elements. All I'm saying is that if we have information that we can look at, people will ask me, and I would like to be able to give them a reason why, okay, we're not going to do it this year or whatever. There might be some problems with the utilities underneath. We're just trying to gather data. We're just trying to get information. We're not trying to tip the apple cart here. Just to have something in hand that we can look at and say, okay, we can tell our citizens, okay, well, there's some issues here with sanitary or with sewer. I don't know if there's a simple way to do that. Probably not. Randy's frowning. I see it.
I think it sounds like it would be great to have a great complex interactive program that would show everything in 3D, right? But it sounds like if you could street by street probably give Steve the information, he could look up that street rather than having it all available and then kind of picking it out, right?
Correct. And again, we're not going to have information like that for the water utility. We'd have to contact the water utility, which we do on a regular basis. And whereas with the street ratings, we've got the Paiser number, so there's actually a numeric rating that's done every 2 years. With the sanitary and the storm, we have created our own numerical rating system that we're using. Water utility does not have a numerical rating like that. When they did their condition study, and I'm speaking on Brian's behalf, and I know Brian will stop me if I say something that I shouldn't. So my understanding of how water utility has done their evaluation system, they've kind of got a grid of 4, and it's higher probability of failure and higher consequence of failure. So you could have a high probability, high consequence, high probability, low consequence, and then corresponding low and okay? And I believe water utility has tried to concentrate their efforts on high probability, high consequence than high consequence, low probability, okay? So they're trying to hit the ones that would hurt the most if there was a failure. And
Makes
again,
sense.
speaking
All right.
with the folks at Water Utility, when we did the Monroe project several years ago, we actually dug up pieces of wooden water main out of the street during that project. So even though it's not in service, there are pipes in the ground. Brian, correct me if I'm wrong. I believe there are pipes in the ground that are fully functional right now that water utility uses that are 100 years old. That's not uncommon. Not here, not anywhere, not with an established community.
All right. Thank you, Steve. Any other questions from the committee? You need approval, or is this just a receive and place on file, Steve?
I left it with possible action for you, Alder. If you want to just receive the report and place it on file, and like I said, I will include the memo that I read for you as part of the packet that goes for council action.
Okay.
Motion
Appreciate
to place on file.
Second.
Motion by Alder Scannell, second by Alder Gerlach to receive and place on file. Thanks, Steve, for putting that on there and getting that memo to everybody. I think it's good that we just stay on top of it and kind of understand it.
We want to get you guys good information so you can make good decisions.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Number 3, consideration of possible action on request by Georgia Pacific to lease property at 1100 West Mason Street to the city of Green Bay on a month-to-month basis to be used by the Department of Public Works for operations at the West Side Garage. Director.
So that property at 1100 West Mason Street, that would be next to LaForce Hardware, between LaForce Hardware and Oneida Street, the gas station there. When you turn on Redwood to enter where the bulk waste bin is, if you keep heading north to the back of the storage yard by the salt sheds, there's a little piece of that 1100 West Mason Street property that's actually owned by Georgia Pacific that we have been occupying, Chris Pierlot tells me, literally for decades. And that has been on a larger lease, larger term lease over time. And periodically when that lease comes due, we've brought that back to the committee to get it reapproved. Georgia Pacific has indicated to us that they are intending to try to sell that property, and I believe it's currently listed. And in order to allow them to be able to sell that property without having a lease encumbered on it, they've simply requested, the lease expired last year. So we've been unofficially working technically without a lease. We've been operating month to month as it is. So we're simply asking the committee to approve a formal lease on a month to month. They'll have to give us 30 days notice if we need to vacate the property. And then just for your edification, it doesn't have anything to do with the lease itself, but we have had informal conversations with Wisconsin or with Georgia Pacific. And if somebody does buy that property, we would be interested in meeting with that new owner to either continue the lease or the city to pay for a certified survey map, a CSM, and split that piece off the back and purchase it from them and attach that to the West Side Garage. So again, this is a lease that has been in existence for decades, and the Georgia Pacific has simply asked us to change the terms from a 5 or a 10-year lease to a month-to-month lease, and staff does support that.
All right, any questions, committee? Any motions?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Alder Scannell, second by Alder Gerlach. And those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Number 4, consideration of possible action on request by Whitney Townhomes LLC to enter into an agreement for Department of Public Works collection of sanitation equipment on the private road located in the block bounded by Webster, Pine, and Van Buren, and Cherry, sorry.
So I'm going to rely on some of the educators in the room because my memory is failing me right now. This is a former school.
Yes.
Yep.
And I can't for the life of me, the old Whitney School. So it it was purchased and rehabilitated into a combination of multifamily and some townhomes.
Yeah,
Whitney,
Whitney, yeah. It's just form-
Because they have requested to have, the garages are all interior facing, and that's where the carts will be. So there's no garage access to the perimeter streets, everything's interior facing. In order to bring the garbage carts out, especially in the townhomes, you would have to walk all the way around the townhome, get on the sidewalk, and then bring it back in front of your building. So the request was for us to collect in the rear by the garages. We do not travel onto private property with our garbage trucks unless we enter into an agreement with the townhome property. So several years back, maybe 10 years ago, we revised the Chapter 9 of Green Bay Municipal Code to give us that ability. If we enter into a hold harmless agreement, the trucks have to be able to travel in a forward motion without backing up. There's a number of conditions that are in the code. So we did advise Whitney Townhomes LLC of those conditions. They are agreeable to those and entering into the hold harmless agreement. The last thing that that we required was to gain temporary access to do a test run with our garbage trucks, actually do a live run. We were able to do that 2 weeks ago, and everything was successful. So staff recommends entering into the agreement and providing the garbage cart service on the backside.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Alderman Scannell, second by Alder Gerlach. Any discussion on this one? Those in favor?
Trash talk.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Tried to get through. You almost made it. All right, that's approved. Number 5, consideration with possible action on request by Department of Public Works to award a contract for bridge inspection services for 21-22 year, 2021-2022 to Aries Associates in the amount of $42,652.
We provided a whole lot of information in the packet with the request for proposals and the responses we got back. Every 2 years, we have certain bridge inspections that need to be completed by WISDOT, in accordance with WISDOT requirements, and then there are additional requirements that need to be completed every 5 years. So for the 2-year cycle that we're currently under, we do not have a certified bridge inspector on staff with the city, so we are going out for consultant services. We did do that request for proposals, received proposals back, and staff is making a recommendation to contract with AIRS in the amount of $42,652 for bridge inspection services for the next 2 years.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Alderman Scannell, second by Alderman Burnett. Any discussion on that? Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. All right. Do we want to talk about weeds? I don't know. I think someone's here for that. Number 6, discussion on proposed revisions to section 8.11 Green Bay Municipal Code, noxious weeds and maintenance of vegetation. Director.
Okay, the city engaged the services of a consultant to take a look at a variety of ordinances, specifically as they relate to green infrastructure and sustainable practices. And section 8.11 was one of those chapters that was selected. The intent of the review was to ensure that barriers to the development of green infrastructure do not exist within city code. So our consultant, J.B. Hines, did an initial first draft on her proposed revisions to section 8.11. Those revisions were then sent forward to the Sustainability Committee to get some feedback from sustainability. And we have included in the packet for tonight, Melissa Schmitz, our resiliency coordinator, is online with us tonight. Melissa provided a summary of comments that came out of Sustainability Commission, and then we actually provided a markup of the draft of 8.11. And within there, you will be able to tell with the color coding to a larger degree what comments came from our consultant and then what comments came from Sustainability Commission's review of the consultant's markups. So again, a whole lot of information coming from two different spots. What we anticipate is at some point, Melissa and I will sit down with the comments that came both from the consultant and from sustainability. And we will put together which of those comments we would like to see in a final draft that will come to the committee for review and approval. So, because there is a lot of information in here, and I didn't think it was fair to all of you to get this stuff on Friday and make a decision tonight, especially with public comment, we brought this forward for discussion tonight, and we intend to bring it back in 2 weeks for action. That will also give not only some public comment tonight, but it'll give the alders an opportunity to review this a little bit more in depth and provide us with your comments as well. So that's my portion of it. I'm going to then look to Melissa to see if she has anything else to add. And then after Melissa's had a chance to comment on the staff perspective, then we would we would ask that somebody make a motion to open the floor for public comment, because we know we have individuals from the public who also want to speak to it.
All right, thanks, Director.
Okay, my turn.
Yes.
Yeah, go for it.
I don't have a lot to add to what Steve's already said. I do want to let the group know that when the city went through the code audit, there were grades assigned to the various codes that the consultant reviewed, and the noxious weeds and maintenance of vegetation received an A-. So it wasn't in, it didn't need heavy revisions. It might look like that when you see the markup, but in general, it's in okay shape. The biggest changes were added in the definitions. A lot of definitions were cleaned up. There were some changes in the registration, in some areas in the standards of natural planned areas, just to have a little bit more, standards applied in those areas, and generally just a cleanup of some of the language for the complaint notification system and the appeals process.
All right. Thank you.
And if you do refer back to the original code on the city's website, for what we have in place right now, I will let you know, I looked it up this morning, and the city's going through Steve, help me out with the word on this, like to recodify all of the codes.
Yes.
So if you are looking for noxious weeds and maintenance of vegetation, it is no longer section 8.11.
For right now, it is.
It is, okay, because when I was on there.
As of this afternoon, the old code is back because the recodification has not gone through approval process.
I was a little surprised because I was like, what's going on?
Somebody made a little oops.
Okay, I was going to say it's now chapter 24 if anybody cares, but that's good to know.
Interesting. All right. Committee, any questions? Otherwise, we can open the floor. What's your
I move
wishes?
that we open the floor.
Okay.
Motion by Alder Gerlach, second by Alder Burnett to open the floor. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Let's see. Anybody here who wants to speak? All right, yeah, go ahead. Name and address, please.
Ned Dorff, 1321 Emily Street.
Good to see you, Ned.
It's great to see you too, Alder Weary. I contacted ahead of time with some comment, but there are some, obviously Melissa's done a ton of work on taking and organizing notes, and obviously there's quite a lot there. So my comments, I'll try to keep them short, but the first page, it's a lot of definition stuff. I think that's pretty good. The second page doesn't seem like there's much controversial. It's really in the third page where I have some strong objections, and the Sustainability Commission also has some strong objections to some of the changes proposed. Under the planned natural landscaping areas, it was section 6, letter A on the third page. registration required. We opposed a mandatory registration of a natural landscaped area. We are in favor of a voluntary system where somebody could register their landscaped area and it would therefore be recognized by the city as a planned management area and provide it some protection if somebody wanted to say, hey, I don't want to look at XYZ in my neighbor's yard. Okay, well, that's fine, but it's a planned landscaped area. So we would recommend moving the registration to a voluntary system. As far as in that same section, one of the recommendations from the consultant was to allow up to 4 planned natural landscaping areas with a maximum cumulative surface area of 300 square feet or 5% of the gross area of the lot, whichever is greater. We strongly oppose that change. We would like to leave it with no arbitrary maximum. We've had that ordinance in place roughly 10 years where property owners were allowed to plant what they wanted to plant on their property. And our natural landscaping areas include things like shrubs and trees. They include things like flowers. Okay. So to say, okay, now we're going to limit how much you can do on your own property, I think would not be respecting the property owner's rights. And it would also be against what we're trying to do in recommending more sustainable use of our landscape. We have issues in the bay with runoff. We have issues of pollution going into our waterways, and there's a strong group of people in the area that want to grow things on their property that require less chemical, require less mowing, things like that. So we shouldn't be discouraging people from doing that. And to set an arbitrary limit, I believe, would discourage people. Sustainability Commission, so we voted to remove mandatory registration and any arbitrary limit. We do, as far as limiting where you can grow this stuff, we do recognize the need to keep sight lines open for traffic. We do recognize the need to keep things from spilling into city rights of way. I remember talking with Director Grenier about this when this first came through about could we do something on the terraced area? And the answer is still no. So we are still okay with that. I in the past kind of fought for that. I recognize that can interfere with some of the work the city needs to do. So I'm okay with, again, leaving the terrace area as turf grass only.
I guess if I could, I'm going to jump in here. Director Grenier, you were shaking your head no. Is there some new information?
That is correct. I'm going to need to sit down with Mr. Dorf on this. The city adopted a street terrace policy several years ago. So it does not have to be turf grass. It can't be a planned natural landscaping, but there is a happy medium in there for something other than turf grass. So I'm more than happy to share that with you and get your comments on that.
I haven't seen the update. Well, thanks. I've been busy being a dad, man. I've been real busy.
That's what these meetings are for, is making sure we're sharing information.
Thank you. Appreciate it. The other thing that we strongly objected to was the 3-foot setback from the property line for a couple reasons. First of all, it's still the property owner's property, whether it's 3 feet, 1 foot, 0 foot. And a second big reason would be if you have, let's say, a mature tree growing in your yard and its trunk starts to reach within that 3-foot line from your neighbor's yard. If we said, okay, you're not allowed to have any kind of planned natural landscaping within 3 feet of your property line, a neighbor could put the city in the middle of a conflict over a tree growing near the property line, over a garden near the property line. I think we're trying to solve a problem that doesn't exist here, and it's going to cause more problems for the city to put that in. And that's on page 4. That's on, it's under Roman numeral 4, number 2, where it says natural planting area shall be no closer than 3 feet to any property line, unless you have a fence, right? We recommend striking that. Those were the big ones. And it sounds like Steve and Melissa are going to be working together on maybe doing some cleaning up of this annotated copy. But I just wanted to make it clear that if we implement some of these changes, it's going to go against what we're trying to do sustainability-wise, and it's going to be counter to private property rights. So, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ned. Any questions for Mr. Dorff? Anybody else here for this item? All right, I'll entertain a motion to return to the regular order.
Motion to return.
Second.
By Scannell, second by Gerlach. Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. So Steve, this is on here for kind of informational to kind of get the ball rolling, and it'll come back in 2 weeks to actually, okay.
Exactly.
I did print off, there was a nice summary of comments. I guess that's yours, Melissa? The summary, okay. That's excellent. And then Ned, I have yours. And then all the notes. So there's a lot to go through and read. And I have to say, pretty much, I think, almost all I agree with. So I have to further look into it, but good points on those. Thoughts from the committee? Alder Gerlach?
I have a question. I asked Ned this earlier, and he didn't know the answer, so I'm going to have to ask Steve. Do we have a weed commissioner?
Yes, we do.
Okay. What's the weed commissioner's name?
The weed commissioner is Josh Brassfield,
Okay.
and that's actually a statutory position. It is called out specifically under state statutes.
Okay. Thank you.
Remember, Alder, if I could, Chairman.
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah, we approved that appointment with all of the department heads, I believe, right?
Yes, correct.
Yeah.
Oh, that's where I heard the name.
Yeah.
We approved it. Okay.
Well, I'm glad we're looking at this again, because back when I used to have parts of Alder Stoyer's district, there was a gentleman, I think on Oregon, who would do his entire yard in wood violets. And back then, it always caused an issue of, some neighbors thought it was really cool and other neighbors hated it. And I won't say who it is, Mark, but you probably know who I'm talking about.
I think so.
I think we did one revision and it kind of met things halfway, but yeah, there's a lot of new things that can be done out there that.
Well, I remember the terrace, Chair. I remember the terrace over on northeast side near the NEW shelter, where they're growing vegetables and things.
Yeah.
So we had that for a while too. So I think all of us alders will look this over. We will definitely look it over and see a lot of good comments. So check it out. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Mike. Any other
Do we need a
questions?
motion to hold then till next week? Motion to hold?
Actually, we don't require any action because it was informative. It was a discussion
Okay.
item only.
So we will see this back at our next meeting, and then that's where we'll take our action on it.
That is correct.
You're gonna bring us your proposed ordinance, and then we can chop
Yes,
it up.
and what I
approve it.
didn't want to have was 3 sets of revisions on the same document. So I thought this time we'd give you what the consultant came up with and what the reactions of the Sustainability Commission were. You'd have time to digest that. Then we would bring you a markup of what we're proposing, taking all those comments into consideration.
Okay.
Because the consultant recommends it doesn't mean that we're going to adopt it, right? Okay, there might be things in there, and in particular, when Ned was talking about those setbacks, I've already talked to Melissa. I think the setbacks that are in the original ordinance are fine. I don't know why the consultant made a recommendation. Now, with that, the 3 feet from the side and rear lot lines are in the existing ordinance. So I want to find some time where Ned and I can sit down and talk, because I'm interested in learning why why some of these things are of such importance to the Sustainability Commission, so that I can learn as well. But we will then, synthesize this all together and come up with what staff has as a recommendation, and bring that document forward. And again, I would like to get that out as quickly as we can, so that everyone has a chance to review it. Again, I didn't think it was fair to drop all this in your lap on Friday and ask you to vote on it on Wednesday, so we put a discussion item out here. I don't think there's anything that's really hanging fire on this. And, we'll bring it back in 2 weeks, and if you decide we still need some time, I think we have that time. I don't think anyone's sitting here looking to revise the ordinance yesterday. We have an ordinance. We would like to make that ordinance better.
Perfect. Yeah, I don't think we see any planting for another 2-3 months. So yeah, a little bit. Ned's already scoping his out. He's got his all planned out already. But any questions from the committee? Otherwise, Alder Gerlach.
Yeah, I just have another question. This is the first time I've ever met our resiliency coordinator. And I would like to, if we could just take a minute for her to talk about what her job is and what she has to do with noxious weeds and things like that.
Go ahead.
Can we do that?
Sure. Okay. So I was hired about 3.5 months ago. I have worked in water resources management for the first half of my career, and I've worked in energy efficiency, electrical energy efficiency, the second half of my career. So as resiliency coordinator, I'm working a lot with across multiple departments within the city through the stormwater utility, primarily on flood resilience. So that's part of the green infrastructure code audit. That's what that's about, is implementing green infrastructure into the code so that when we have development and redevelopment projects, that we're utilizing more of those green infrastructure practices to manage stormwater. Those are more natural, nature-based stormwater controls versus concrete and culvert and pipe controls. So it's really meshing those two things together. And I'm working on some climate resilience initiatives as well, but primarily stormwater and flooding.
Thank you. Director Grenier can tell you that I'm very interested in that subject, right?
Very much so.
All right. Thank you, Melissa. Appreciate it. Any other questions from the committee? Otherwise, we'll just receive and place on file. I'll entertain a motion for that.
Receive and place on file.
All right. Motion by Scannell.
Second.
Second by Alder Gerlach. Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. All right, Ned, looks like we'll see you in 2 weeks. Take care. Good seeing you. All right. Number 7, consideration with possible action on the report of the purchasing manager for approval of award to Bobcat Plus for utility terrain vehicle with tracks for the sum of $28,622. Bobcat Plus was the only vendor to meet the specifications of RFB 2021-04.
And we've included the summary from the purchasing department. Vendor 1 was Bobcat Plus. Again, as indicated, once staff had a chance to review, Bobcat Plus was the only vendor that actually met the specification. All I have here on the summary from the purchasing department is that it didn't meet the specification, so unfortunately I'm not going to be able to tell you why. So staff does recommend, we concur with the recommendation of the purchasing agent to award to Bobcat Plus in the amount of $28,622. Just anecdotally, I can tell you that's a pretty typical price for equipment of this nature.
Okay. Motion by Alder Scannell to approve.
I seconded it.
Second by Alder Gerlach. Any discussion on that? Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That carries. Number 8, consideration of possible action on the review and award of the contract, Green Bay Water Utility Addition Renovation.
And this one's a little bit weird. I'm going to apologize up front for this. My staff is a little too efficient. We had this rostered on the agenda, and rather than going through and amending the agenda, we figured we'd just let it play out. Because it's Green Bay Water Utility and it's not levy supported, they answer to the Water Commission, not to the City Council. Technically, there's no reason for us to take any action on this. The Green Bay Water Commission would actually be the one awarding it. But Water Utility was gracious enough to provide us with a concurrence letter saying that they recommend award. So if procedurally we want to agree with them and recommend awarding this contract to the low responsive bidder, Myron Construction, for the base bid amount of $4,339,725.
Committee?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Scannell, second by Gerlach to approve the contract award to Myron Construction. Any discussion on that? Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Number 9, report of actions taken by Department of Public Works. A, granting of licenses, sidewalk builder to Absolute Concrete LLC, and B, Larry Van Wright Trucking and Excavating. Number 2 is tree and brush trimmers. A1 Tree Service, Inc. B, Consciously Fresh Tree Service, LLC, and C, Economy Tree Service, LLC. Any questions on those? Otherwise, just a report so we can receive and place it on file.
Yes, sir.
Receive and place on file.
Second.
Motion by Alder Scannell, second by Alder Gerlach to receive and place on file. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Looks like Elder Burnett is messaging me here. His internet went out, so that's why he wasn't. I'll run information also. Director's report.
Okay, 2 items for you real quick. First, we continue to perform recovery from the last snow event that we had. These are the ones that I hate the most. Fortunately, we did dodge a little bit of a bullet not getting the freezing rain on the front end of it, but because it was a heavy, wet snow and during the timing of when it fell, during the typical business day, unfortunately for us, there was a lot of traffic that got onto that snow, especially in the residential zones, before we had an opportunity to plow it. I know I've had a lot of discussions with the street superintendent about this, and Josh is really beating himself up, and he shouldn't. There are some folks in town who think we should have been out sooner. The minute we had traffic, people coming home from work in the afternoon, that heavy wet snow that compacted that snow down onto the road surface and created that bond, there would have been no difference if we'd have waited until noon the following day, and we got what we could. And when that bond got established, it got established. And then unfortunately, we've been in the deep freeze ever since, which is really ironic because Josh and I attended a webinar that was put on by a meteorological firm, not National Weather Service, not one of our local TV stations. This is actually a contracted meteorological service. And they were talking in general terms, not only upper Midwest, but, effects across the country. But when we were talking about the upper Midwest and our area in particular, they told us that given atmospheric conditions and their long prognostications, this type of long extended freeze was not going to happen this year. We had already gotten beyond that, and 2 weeks after they said it, we wind up going in the freezer for 2 weeks. So those of you who've been on the council for a while have heard my spiel on this. The minute that bond establishes, there's really not a lot we can do. We are anticipated by next Tuesday that weather is going to start picking back up into the teens. Again, because we are by the end of this week, we're going to be at Valentine's Day, and that's always one of the keys that I use. I wish I could say it was romantic and, with my wife and so on, but unfortunately it's my job. After Valentine's Day, the sun is starting to creep higher on the horizon and we're getting more radiant energy of it. We change how we fight snow and ice on or about Valentine's Day. So we should have more of that energy from the sun. we can't just go spreading ice or salt or ice melting compounds. From an ecological standpoint, that's unsustainable. And, Melissa being our resiliency coordinator, I'd have her up in my office telling me I'm not being ecologically friendly and unsustainable. So, see, I'm getting the finger wag already. So we do continue to look for opportunities. We have been out and sanded every route in the city twice already, and we'll continue to respond to those kind of issues as they pop up. Our folks are on the street daily. We are receiving reports back from police and fire as they're making service calls. So as we're getting the reports, we are responding and doing what we can. Unfortunately, we're kind of limited until the weather breaks. We are taking a look at we're experimenting a little bit with some blends on some high volume areas on our primaries that have iced back over to see if we can't do something to get that broken up. So staff is continuing to work on this and pick away at it as we can. And as soon as we get favorable weather considerations, we will have machinery back out with loaders and graders through all routes. We anticipate once it starts, we should be able to get back on about a 3-day cycle. It'll take us about 3 days to get through all the residential routes. And then if we have to come back, we'll come back again and come back. It's our intent. We want to get back down to bare pavement as quickly as we can as well. So we just want to make sure that the committee and the council is aware we are continuing to work on it. We're not sitting back just watching it. The only other thing that I have for you tonight is more on a personal nature. Just to advise you that on March 11th, I need to go in and have some surgery. I've got a 35-year-old injury that I can't deal with any longer, so I'm having a knee replacement done. So that is going to take me out of action for a couple of weeks. I've been working with Jim Burnett, who most of you know. Jim will be stepping in to handle my duties while I'm out. I do anticipate that, hopefully if things go well with recovery and therapy, doctor said it's not inconceivable that within 2 weeks or so after the surgery, I might be able to start working from home. So as much as I can, I'll be in contact with Jim and trying to carry my own load, as it were. But things are going to get a little busy on the upper management end of things here at DPW. And if you try to get a hold of me, especially through the second half of March or early April, and I'm not as quick in responding to you, I'm not ignoring you. It's because I'm out on medical leave.
All right. Well, thanks for letting us know. Good luck there, Steve.
Oh, thank you.
Probably a hockey injury, I'm guessing, or something.
Actually, no, it was a football injury.
Oh, all right.
Did you get a touchdown? That's all we want to know. Did you score?
I was actually covering a kickoff, and I had the guy dead to rights up against the sideline. And when he decided to make a cut and squeeze through that hole between me and the sidelines, I drove the spike into the turf. And
Bingo.
By the time I was done, my foot was pointed backwards, and they found my kneecap on my calf.
I hate when that happens.
So does he.
So it was not a pretty injury.
Well, good luck.
Well, you'll have to pray standing up now, but that's fine. You'll be good.
Any questions, committee? No. All right. I understand a motion to receive and place that on file.
Motion to receive and place on file.
Second.
Motion by Alder Scannell, second by Alder Gerlach. Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Looks like our next meeting is February 24th. We can talk about weeds. Sorry.
And as luck would have it, the next INS meeting is March 10th. I waited until after the next INS. It's the day after the next INS that I'm going in for surgery.
You held out just for us.
Yes, as a matter of fact, I did.
I'm glad we mean that much to you. Anything else, Jill? Gentle people?
Motion to adjourn.
All right.
Second.
Alder Scannell, second by Alder Gerlach. And Jesse said he's very sorry. He apologized to everyone, even Randy.
Oh, wow.
I know.
He doesn't need to apologize to me.
He needs to apologize to me. I missed him.
He's gonna bring a cake to you tomorrow, Randy. So
Oh, there we go.
All right. Those in favor?
Okay.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
As Randy would say, we are adjourned.
Yes.
adjourn. He's an English teacher. English.
All right. Thanks,
All right.
everyone.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.